My name is Serena Brown. I was 28 years old the day I walked down the aisle alone because my parents decided the man I loved was beneath me. The break happened in mid-February, when the RSVP cards started coming back. Most of them were easy. Green check marks, happy notes. Kelly, my maid of honor, drew champagne glasses on hers and wrote "cannot wait" in all caps. Nathan's union brothers sent theirs back fast too. Every single one checked yes. Then my family's envelopes arrived. I was sitting at Nathan's kitchen table with my laptop open, tracking responses in a spreadsheet: green for yes, red for no, yellow for waiting. I opened my mother's first. Carolyn and Raymond Brown. Declines with regret. No note, just a check mark and her signature in that perfect, careful cursive that always looked more loving than she actually was. My brother's card was next. No. Then my sister's. No. 3 red cells in a sea of green. Nathan looked at my face and didn't say anything. He just reached across the table and held my hand while I stared at those cards like they might change if I looked long enough. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. I should have let it go to voicemail, I answered, and within seconds I realized she had me on speaker with my father. They had planned it. A united front. We're not coming, she said. We can't support this. Support what? I asked, even though I already knew. My father cut in. This marriage. Then my mother said the words I still hear in my head sometimes. That man is trash, Serena. His mother was a drunk who dumped him at a bus station. What kind of worthless man comes from that? Trash, garbage, worthless, damaged goods. They said he was an electrician with a dead-end job and a family history of abandonment. They said they hadn't worked this hard just to watch me throw my life away on a piece of trash. My father actually said Nathan came from bad stock, like he was talking about livestock instead of a human being. I asked them one last desperate question. If I called it off, would that make you happy? There was a silence long enough to feel like hope. Then my mother said, yes. I hung up. Nathan was standing there waiting, and when I told him what they had called him, his face did something I will never forget. Pain first. Then that careful blankness people wear when something hurts too much to show. But he didn't make it about himself. He took my face in his hands and asked me one thing. Do you want to call off the wedding? Absolutely not, I said. The words came out fast. Fierce, because I loved him, and because the ugliness in my parents had made one thing painfully clear: I was not choosing between a good man and their approval. I was choosing between love and cruelty. That wasn't a hard choice. You need to understand who Nathan really was, because my parents never bothered to find out. Nathan Hartley was 32. His mother, Joanna, had him at 18 and lost herself to addiction not long after. By the time Nathan was 8, his childhood was already a blur of cheap apartments, bad men, cigarettes, beer, and the kind of instability that teaches a child not to expect comfort. On the 23rd of August 2002, she took him to the Worcester Greyhound station, sat him down at gate 6 with a king-size Snickers bar, and told him to wait there because she'd be right back. She never came back. After 41 minutes, he asked a clerk for help. The woman found a note tucked in his jacket pocket on a Dunkin' Donuts napkin. I can't be the mom you need. Grandma will take care of you. I'm sorry. His grandmother Dorothy picked him up 3 hours later. Dorothy was 61, working overnight custodial shifts at a hospital and cleaning houses during the day. She should have been thinking about retirement. Instead, she became a mother all over again. She raised him in a clean little apartment, made sure he ate, made sure he did his homework, made sure he understood that his mother's choices were not his fault. Nathan grew up. He got good grades. There wasn't money for college, so he chose trade school, became an electrician, and built a life with his own 2 hands. He bought his own tools, paid off his truck, saved for our wedding, volunteered at a youth center teaching kids basic electrical safety, called his grandmother every Sunday until she died. That was the man my parents called garbage. We met at a gym in the summer of 2023, after he helped me fix a jammed locker with a piece of wire from his bag. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into everything. 6 months in, I knew I would marry him. 18 months in, I told my parents. That was when everything broke. The weeks before the wedding were a strange kind of grief. I booked the church, reserved the hall, bought the dress, chose flowers, tasted cake. Every happy task came with the same hollow ache. My mother wasn't there, my father wasn't there, my siblings had obeyed them. I lost 8 pounds without trying. Stress peeled me down to bone. Our planner suggested removing the reserved family signs from the front row on my side. Leave them, I said. I knew they weren't coming, but some stupid hopeful part of me needed those seats there anyway, needed the option to exist, even if they never took it. The night before the wedding, I called Nathan at 1:18 in the morning and told him I was afraid I'd start crying halfway down the aisle and never stop. Then I'll come meet you halfway, he said. The next morning, I got ready in a bridal suite with Kelly and my bridesmaids and my 16-year-old cousin Lily, who had defied her parents to come. The room was full of makeup brushes and mimosas and music, and women trying their best to build joy around an obvious absence. When the makeup artist asked where my mom was, the room went quiet. By the time Kelly buttoned me into my dress, all 38 tiny satin buttons, I looked exactly like a bride should look. Beautiful, polished, ready, and completely alone. At 1:47, my phone buzzed with a text from my sister. She said she was sorry she couldn't be there, that Mom and Dad said it would be disloyal, that she hoped I was happy. I didn't respond. At 1:58, Kelly asked me one last time if I was ready. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. Nathan was already at the altar in his charcoal suit, hands shaking, trying to breathe. On his side of the church, the pews were packed with union brothers, friends, neighbors, the kids from the youth center and their parents, all the people who had chosen him on purpose. On my side, the front row held 3 empty seats marked reserved family. Then the music started. The doors opened, and every guest stood. I stepped into the aisle alone. Later, Nathan told me he started crying before I took my first step. I believe him. I could see it in his face from 80 feet away. I counted my steps to keep from falling apart. Don't look at the empty seats. Just look at him. Just keep going. Halfway down the aisle, my composure cracked and one tear slipped free. Then the back door opened. The heavy oak door creaked so loudly it seemed to split the whole church in half. Every head turned. A woman stood in the doorway wearing a blue dress, hands shaking, tears already on her face. I didn't recognize her. I looked at Nathan to see who she was. His face had gone white. Then his legs gave out. Not a stumble, not a sway, a full collapse. His knees hit the marble so hard the sound echoed through the church. He stared at that woman like he was seeing a ghost. 8 seconds of total silence passed. Then, into the microphone at the altar, with 200 people listening, he said one broken word. Mom? The entire church gasped. The woman took one step forward and stopped. Nathan, she said, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to disrupt anything. I just needed to see you. He was still on his knees, shaking. You left me. You left me at a bus station. Every person in that church heard it. I was standing there in my wedding dress holding a bouquet, my own parents absent, his mother suddenly appearing after decades, and somehow my body knew what to do before my brain did. I turned around and walked toward her. I looked her in the eyes and asked one question. Are you here to hurt him? No, she said. I'm here to witness what I should have witnessed all along. I held her gaze for one long second, then turned back to Nathan. Do you want her to stay? He looked at me, shattered and overwhelmed. I don't know. So I went back to him, knelt beside him in my wedding dress, took his face in my hands, and said, We can stop. We can pause. Whatever you need. He shook his head. No, we're getting married. I'm not letting her ruin this too. He stood up on shaking legs. I turned back to the woman in blue. Sit down, I said. Back row, don't move. We'll talk after. She nodded and did exactly that. The ceremony resumed, but it was not the ceremony we had planned. It was heavier than that. Stranger. Truer. Nathan kept glancing back because how could he not? The woman who had abandoned him at 8 years old was sitting in the back pew of his wedding church, crying into a tissue. When it was time for vows, he looked at me and said the line we had written together weeks earlier. I promise to be the family you deserve. His voice broke on the word family, and he couldn't finish. So I spoke my vows clearly enough for everyone in that room to hear. Nathan, I don't care who shows up or who doesn't. I choose you. Every day, no matter what. Father Sullivan, who had clearly abandoned any hope of this being a normal wedding, looked at us with tears in his own eyes and said he had never seen a bride walk alone, never seen a mother appear after decades, and never seen love more clearly. Then he pronounced us husband and wife. Nathan kissed me and whispered, Thank you for not running. Never, I whispered back. We walked back down the aisle married. His mother stood as we passed and whispered, Congratulations. Nathan didn't answer. He just kept walking with his arm tight around me like he was trying to hold on to the only real thing in the room. At the reception he could barely eat. He was there, but not fully. I understood. At 7:30 he came to me and said he needed to go talk to her. Then go, I said. I'll be here when you get back. He found Joanna sitting on the church steps with her husband, Tim. She told him everything. The addiction, the overdose 3 days after she left him, the rehab, the years of sobriety, the shame. The fake Facebook account she had used to watch him from a distance after Dorothy died. The reason she came, she said she saw that my family wasn't coming and couldn't bear the thought of him standing there abandoned again. Nathan listened, furious and devastated. He told her she didn't get to fix this by showing up 23 years later. He told her exactly what happened at Gate 6 and how long he waited and what that note did to him. Then, because he was still Nathan, because even broken people can be generous when they want to be, he said one thing before he left. Don't leave. That was all. By the next morning, the whole world knew. One of Nathan's union brothers had posted a 47-second video from the church. Bride walks alone. Door opens. Groom collapses. His mom, who abandoned him 23 years ago, just showed up. The internet did what it always does. It exploded. Millions of views, news outlets, comment threads, strangers dissecting class, addiction, family cruelty, forgiveness. But beneath all of that noise was one simple truth people understood immediately. The woman who had actually failed Nathan showed up. The people who had spent 28 years calling themselves my family did not. My parents saw the video from their bedroom after a neighbor texted it to them. They watched me walk alone. They watched the empty seats. They watched Nathan fall to his knees. Then they read the comments, and for the first time in their lives, the world saw them exactly as they were. Not protectors, not respectable, cruel. They called later, of course. My mother cried. My father said they had made a mistake. I asked the only question that mattered. Are you sorry you hurt me, or are you sorry you look bad? They didn't have a real answer. So I gave them terms. Therapy. With me and Nathan. No relationship with me that excluded my husband. No more opinions on my marriage. They agreed because for once they understood they were not in control. Nathan made his own decision too. A few days later, he texted Joanna and met her for coffee. He told her she didn't get to be mom. Dorothy had been his mother. Joanna would be Joanna. But he also told her thank you for coming to the wedding. That was where all real healing began. Not in some perfect apology, not in a viral video, in truth, in boundaries. In people finally being forced to face what they had done. My parents started therapy with us. Slow, awkward, humiliating therapy. The kind where a professional says the word classism out loud, and nobody can hide behind concern or tradition or family values anymore. Nathan kept meeting Joanna too, carefully, angrily, honestly. Neither path was neat, neither one was easy. But both were real. That is what I learned from that day. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most will fail you in the ugliest possible way. Sometimes the people with the worst history are the ones who fight hardest to become better. And sometimes you walk down the aisle alone, thinking you are the abandoned one, only to discover that love is already waiting for you at the altar, steady enough to survive the worst interruption imaginable. My parents thought they knew exactly who they were rejecting when they rejected Nathan. They were wrong. Because the man they called damaged goods stood in front of 200 witnesses, shattered open, and still chose love. And I chose him back, every day, no matter what.